Hello, I'm Dana Levenberg, member of the Assembly for the 95th District of New York State. Welcome to my podcast, Building Healthy Communities. My mission as a legislator is to build healthy communities in every sense of the word. Environmentally healthy, economically healthy, physically and mentally healthy, all through the lens of equity. In this podcast series, I take a time to talk with leaders, advocates, and others who are helping to build healthy communities here in the 95th Assembly District and beyond. Along the way, I share information and resources for local residents, which I hope is news that you can use. Today, I'm joined by Megan Larmer, the Senior Director of Programs at Glynwood Center for Regional Food and Farming, which is located in Cold Spring, New York. And if you haven't been there, you must go. It's an organization that has been building a resilient and equitable food system in New York's Hudson Valley for over 25 years. Glynwood is recently administered the Hudson Valley Farm Relief Fund, which is an emergency initiative to provide essential financial assistance to farms across 11 counties in New York that have faced USDA funding delays and losses due to the federal funding freeze. The relief fund successfully distributed 1,000, I don't think that number is right, 1,078,953 in emergency relief to 44 farms across the Hudson Valley. And in today's episode, Megan is going to share more about Glynwood, its mission, and the relief fund. So welcome, Megan.
Thank you so much for having me, Dana. It's nice to be here.
It's great to have you. So tell me a little bit about Glynwood Center for Regional Food and Farming and what your main goals are.
Sure. So, as you mentioned, our purpose is to build just and resilient food systems so that communities, land, and farmers thrive. And we do that through a number of interrelated initiatives. On our own home farm, we raise vegetables and animals to the highest degree of environmental stewardship and animal welfare. We use that farm as a training ground, both for apprentices who live and work on our farm and for the broader Hudson Valley farming community by running a decentralized apprenticeship called the Hudson Valley Apprenticeship that includes many of our fine farm colleagues and peers and provides that training to the apprentices that they host on their farms. We also work to build markets and movements. So what that means is that we support the development of various local food chains all the way from the producer up to the consumer. So we've done decades of work with apple growers in the hard cider industry. We work with growers of small grains and staple foods like dried beans and oil nuts, introducing them to bakers, restaurants, and other consumers. We are also really proud of our work with CSA farmers and the Hudson Valley CSA Coalition that has over 114 farm members that we support through marketing and education.
And for those who don't know what CSA means, you want to say CSA?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So CSA stands for Community Supported Agriculture. And basically, it's a subscription to a farm. So you invest in that farm at the start of the season, you pay for your veggies or beans, or I've had a cider CSA and a flour CSA before. And then you collect your dividends. You get to go pick up your share throughout the season as the farmer grows. A huge help to small farms having that liquid asset and just a really incredible way to be in deep community with your own farm.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then we also do some food access work. So we support farms in supplying food to pantries, mutual aid networks through our Food Sovereignty Fund. And we also provide the opportunity for people using SNAP, formerly known as food stamps, to buy their vegetables through CSA programs. We call it CSA as a SNAP, is that project.
Yeah. Fantastic.
A lot of things. We're busy.
It's really incredible. I mean, it's just like you really kind of run the gamut. What inspired you to get involved with Glynwood?
Well, I came from an arts background, and like a lot of my fellow artists, worked in the restaurant industry for quite a long time. And it was through that work, basically hanging out in the kitchen, talking with the chefs and watching one particular farmer, Marty Spence. This was in Illinois when I lived in Chicago. He would come in with just the most beautiful produce, and learning and talking to him about what it meant to farm in this era, in this time, and to connect to the land really inspired me to go on to earn a master's degree and a PhD in food anthropology, to work for Slow Food, which is an international movement, and eventually to work for Glynwood. Yeah.
Amazing. That's a great trajectory, I think, to get you here. And I feel like we're so lucky to have you here with all your experience and including that in the arts, because somehow it does feel like it's all tied together, I think, in terms of I'm sure that there's so many farmers who it's at first it's like an art form for them to the slow food movement and actually caring for the land and growing your vegetables and fruits and taking care of if you have animals or whatever. It's really a labor of love to have a small farm, I think. And I just love so much the mission that you described and how it's just truly paying it forward in just the most wonderful way.
And lots of farmers are artists themselves. I mean, visual artists and
Sure.
musicians, and it's a creative profession for sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so you talked a lot about some of the big programs. Are there specific services that you offer? And I guess the question is, since you talked somewhat about those already, who is eligible to receive them? And how do you
Sure.
find out, if you are one of those people that could actually benefit from some of the services Glenwood has to offer?
Absolutely. So, we really take a holistic approach to trying to transform these food systems and make them more livable and accessible for everyone in the Hudson Valley. So, I would say anyone who eats is probably able to plug in some way into the programming that Glenwood provides.
Well, at the very least, you can go to the store and buy produce there, right?
Absolutely.
If you
Support all
eat and you
local
like
farmers
food,
and
right?
producers. That's right. That's right.
Keep going.
Yeah, so certainly part of our target audience is beginning or small scale farmers, especially farmers who are looking to build equitable food systems or combat climate crisis. We love to work with them, but really food artisans of all types. We even work with physicians down at NYU on some health initiatives, public health initiatives. We work with policymakers in the mayor's office. So
So do
there's
you reach out to them or do they find you? Like how does that happen? How
It
does
kind
those
of
synergies?
it's a two-way street,
Yeah.
So thinking about our partnership with Dr. Stella Yee down at NYU Langone School of Medicine, I actually can't remember exactly how we met Stella, but I believe that she reached out because she was looking for some guidance about the community supported agriculture model and
Hmm.
possibly bringing that to the Asian elders she was working with down in Manhattan.
Nice.
Through that, we she reached out because she heard about our CSA coalition. We talked about that. And then also, bubbling within our organization was a real desire to become more involved with the food as medicine initiatives that are cropping up everywhere.
Hmm.
When we first started talking to folks about that work, I remember a physician saying to me, I just want them to eat apples instead of Apple Jacks. I don't care where that apple came from. And
Uh-huh.
we thought, well, that's a really missed opportunity because
Yeah.
the public health benefits of the environmental services and the economic services small farms can provide if you are eating that apple from a local food system matters to us. And it matters to Dr. Yee and her team also. So we've been able to collaborate with them on several efforts to bring regional food into those communities.
That is phenomenal. I love that. That's such a great story. I'm going to share that with some of my colleagues
Great.
too. Also, I've been tasked with overseeing the composting initiative for the state assembly when my colleague Harvey Epstein goes off to hopefully win a city council seat. And if so, then I'm going to be talking to you about that some more because we could definitely use additional help with that. Yeah. And I know that you know so much about that. I just want to say I was excited to hear about Glynwood's Hudson Valley Farm Relief Fund. Maybe you could talk a little bit more about that initiative and all that. Maybe that is what you were talking about how the farmers and the firms can access that. But I'm not sure if that's what you already talked about.
No, so no, that would be so this was a something we did once is really an emergency intervention. It's not an
Got it.
ongoing program. But, in order to do our work meaningfully, it's critical that we really be engaged in the full farming community. We've spent decades building relationships of trust and open communication with all of those farmers. So, in this first quarter, when the federal administration froze so much federal funding and the USDA was particularly targeted,
Yes.
we knew that there was going to be major implications for the farms that we work with. There are implications in our own organization, but
Sure.
we knew that these small farms, especially the previous administration, the Biden administration opened up USDA funding to groups of farmers that had never had access to it before and where it was desperately needed. So for a lot of these folks, we knew this is also like the first time they'd had any USDA funding. They were in no way prepared for the kind of shock of having that removed. I don't think anyone really was. It used to be the most trusted funder around,
Absolutely.
right? Yeah.
Right.
So
Until
they
now.
basically, people were calling us saying, "Do you know what's happening? Can you help us? Let me tell you what's happening here." And we have an amazing chapter called the Hudson Valley Young Farmers Coalition of the National Young Farmers Coalition. So those organizers, those farmer organizers, started collecting stories. They put out the call, "Everyone tell us what's happening, help us document how this is impacting you." So our president, Kathleen Finley, was able to work with that data and to collaborate and partner with the Hudson Valley Young Farmers Coalition to bring that information to some of the funders in our region and say, we have to step in. Look
Yeah.
at where we live. We have the resources. We can't let these small farms bear the brunt of this impact. And there was, at the time, it was like, well, maybe we'll come back. Maybe it'll be okay. But this is March on the farming calendar. Your plans need to be done.
Right. Yeah.
It's things have already been put in place. There's no time to wait for the
Sure.
resources to start your farming season. So that really was the impetus, that we knew that immediate emergency action needed to be taken to keep a lot of these farms in business and just to do what was right, to get them the money that they had been promised and that they had already spent,
Hmm.
that now had
Yeah.
been taken away. Yeah.
Unbelievable. I
It
mean,
was
that's again, food on people's tables. And many of these small farms also provide food pantries with food, right?
absolutely, absolutely. It's a huge motivator for many, many of, if not all of the farmers we work with, to be able to
Right.
feed everyone in their community, including those who would struggle to pay full price for it.
Right, right. I mean, you talked about the SNAP benefits and those
Yeah,
kinds of things drying up. And again, the direct to farm benefits through USDA plus the SNAP benefits, that's
yeah,
just, going to knock out farming as we know it, and certainly small farming. Maybe the big factory farms. I don't even know that, if this was good for them either. But it's the bottom line is that we know it's so much healthier to have, as you were saying, that apple from a local farm versus from anywhere filled with pesticides. Like
right.
so many of the practices that I know you preach have to do with not relying on chemical, certainly toxic chemicals and toxic fertilizers, or pesticides.
Absolutely.
It doesn't mean you aren't using some sort of
Controls and right. There's certain, I mean,
controls,
there's an art and a science to farming.
right?
So it's not as if, these farmers simply scatter seeds in some dirt and wait for it
Cross
to
their fingers. Yeah, exactly.
But yes, the investment in small farms is absolutely an investment in climate crisis mitigation, but it's also an investment in our communities and in the ability for people to make healthy lives for themselves by being able to have a job that is healthy, honest work.
Right. I mean, and that's from the side of, of the growers and the farmers, but also this from the side of the communities who engage with the local
Yes.
farms. A lot of times there's education programs and you bring kids in who may, I mean, I tell the story. I was out hiking or biking with my husband in Block Island, off the coast of Rhode Island. And it would happen to be blackberry season. And I was out there, we were picking blackberries. I love blackberries, and I grew up picking blackberries on Block Island. And it was this woman walks by. I don't know if she was in her high heels, or I feel like she was, even though she probably wasn't. But that's just how I feel. And she's like, "What are you doing? What is that?" And I said, "Oh, we're picking blackberries." And she said, "You can eat those?"
Right.
Oh, so well, I'm from, I don't know where she said, I'm from Long Island, or I'm from New Jersey or something. And, I buy my blackberries in the store. And I'm sorry to laugh, but, I'm like, where do you think they come
Someone
from?
else picked them.
They grow. And if you know
Right.
what they look like, they taste really good if you pick them wild. But anyway, I just thought, I was like, well, I'm from New Jersey too, and I know how
Right.
to pick blackberries. Anyway, it was just very funny. But, honestly, so many people who haven't had the opportunity to be exposed
Absolutely.
to growing of food think you just get it in the supermarket, and they don't
Mhm.
really think, how does it grow? And so having the exposure and the ability to understand not only how it grows, but how, all of these systems are interdependent,
Mhm.
and what's in the soil is now in you, I
Right.
think it gives you a much better understanding. So I know that, you guys have a lot of education programs as well. I don't know if you're prepared to talk about some of those, but feel free if you'd like to.
Sure. I mean, we have, so most of our education is really geared towards professionals in the food system. So
Yeah.
whether that's millers or vegetable farmers, apple farmers, livestock farmers, but we do try to be, really to welcome in our local community as well. So our farm stores open 4 days a week. And in addition to carrying really an incredible selection of foods produced right here in the Hudson Valley, has wonderfully knowledgeable staff. You get to see our no-till, low-till hand-worked veg field. When you go, you get to talk to the farmers who grew the food. We also do an annual food and farm day. We have a benefit coming up in September that we'd love to have folks attend. There's yoga on the farm now. So
Oh,
if you go to our events page on our website, which is just glynwood.org, you can see lots of opportunities to join us for farm dinners and all kinds of great programming on site. Yeah, which is both educational and fun.
absolutely. And I have to say, I have taken advantage of some of those. I know you had some meals and you can also stay overnight there. I think I did that
Yes.
with my
Yeah.
husband for an anniversary once. And it was really quite an amazing, amazing and very, very special meal. And then I think we toured around the farm the next day and walked the farm and met the animals and saw the farmers. And it was a great experience just to see really farm to table, like, direct farm to
Truly.
table, like
Table
very
to
cool.
farm.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was wonderful. How about climate change? Like, how are you talking to farmers about facing climate change and
Sure.
what that looks like for them and farmers in general? Because obviously, I mean, I know when what the show airs is going to be different from what we just experienced, but we just experienced, I don't know, 3 or 4 days of excruciating heat in this
Yeah.
region. I know my plants were not happy. They were not happy plants. Some of them are like, woohoo, it's as hot as could be. I'm gonna thrive. And some of them are like just, petering out. They can't take
Yeah.
it. So how does that affect our farmers, the climate change
Sure.
with
I
these
mean, like I said,
extremes?
I grew up in California. I've worked in the Midwest, and I've never met a single farmer who thought that climate change was not real, no matter what political persuasion they might have otherwise. The
Hmm.
people who work outdoors every day on the land know that things have changed and that they've changed drastically, and that change is speeding up. So we don't have to convince anyone that we work with. Instead, they're looking to us for two things: one, for how they can help, what solutions their farm can provide, and secondly, how they can continue to viably farm in this
Build
very
resilience.
chaotic weather, right? So, on the one hand, on our own farm, we demonstrate climate smart practices. We do that by farming in a way that mitigates the impact of major rain events. So, we've put swales up in some of our top fields, these basically like hills, little trenches that we've dug out that help to move the water into the soil and then away from the soil when it's had enough and into a pond, right? We also have installed what's called a climate battery. So, this is basically a greenhouse that's not made of glass, but is covered in polyurethane and plastic and hoops. And normally, those types of hoop houses, they're called, or polytunnels, normally in the winter, if you wanted to be growing, January, February, March, which we can do with the help of this technology, you'd be using propane or something similar to heat that. What this climate battery does instead is it actually has huge tubes that have been crisscrossed underground, and then a network of fans and a thermostat that tell the fans when to draw warm air up out of the ground or when to push that warm air back down for storage and use later. Same in the
Interesting.
summer, it can do that with cool air, right? So we're looking at these ways of reducing like petrochemical reliance and that kind of stuff on the farm. Then we're also looking at just keeping farmers safe and helping them learn how to grow crops that are going to start to perform better here as it gets warmer. So
Mm,
one of a couple of the farms we work closely with are working on growing rice, which would not have been considered a New York
right.
possible crop, a
Sure.
couple decades ago. We also have developed some really aggressive like heat protocols for our own team so that they can stay safe in the heat. We share those really openly with other farmers at things like our CSA Farm Summit in the winter and other opportunities. A lot of, yeah,
Fantastic.
and a lot of training. Our apprentices spend a lot of time learning about different climate mitigation techniques they can use in their own farming.
Amazing.
Yeah.
You guys are really cutting edge, I have to say.
Right.
And what do you think in the future that Glynwood's hoping to accomplish, and I guess to continue doing what you're doing and expand? I think you're always sort of looking in the next 10 years
Mhm.
and planning ahead. What do you think the next 10 years look like for you?
Sure. I
Five.
mean, we're always looking to deepen and sustain the network of partnerships that we build amongst the farms and other organizations. We're so lucky in the Hudson Valley to have so many committed and amazing people working on this. So, learning how we can better share resources, share decision making, and have that collective movement that we need to face big, lofty goals like changing food systems. So that's the kind of 1,000-foot view of what we're doing. And on the ground, yeah, we have an incredible team that is always educating themselves further, always bringing in new ideas for how to deepen the work. Two of the initiatives that I'm really excited about right now. We recently received a regional food system infrastructure grant from New York State Ag and Markets. We'll
Mm-hmm.
be using that to refit what was sheep barn to turn it into a little mini granary where we'll be
Oh,
able to
nice.
store grain and staple crops safely for farms that maybe can't invest in that storage yet. So creating some shared infrastructure, some shared tools for teaching about that.
Mm.
I'm really excited about that. We're also incubating a hugely innovative project uh, currently under the working title of the Hudson Valley Farmer Housing Working Group. So this
Mm.
was begun by Faith Gilbert, who was a founding farmer of Letterbox Farm back in 2020. The work has advanced to the point where we were able to secure enough resources to hire Jules Farr, and they're now leading the development of that work. So we hope to be successfully launching that organization to address the housing crisis for the farmers in the Hudson Valley.
I don't know that we would love to continue to be involved in those conversations as well,
Great.
since housing is certainly and affordability is certainly one of my focuses. So
Yeah,
I'd love to hear more about that and work with you guys on that. That's
great.
amazing. All right, I'm just trying to see if there's anything additional. We're definitely getting towards the end. If there's anything else that you wanted to mention that maybe I didn't ask you about in particular about any of your programs or any of the people that make Glenwood go, because I know you do really have an incredible staff and maybe even some volunteers. So I don't know if you want to talk about anybody in particular that has been doing great work. And you just froze. So I guess I don't know what to do with that. Okay. Are you there? Okay. Well, I guess I'll just keep talking then until we get Megan back. I'm not sure what happened, but I wanted to just thank you, Megan, for joining us today to share all the great work that Glynwood has been doing for regional food and farming for the 95th Assembly District and obviously well beyond. I'm extremely grateful for your work to improve farms and farm systems, to build resiliency on farms, to teach good practices, best practices for farmers, and as we heard, just to really help out in times of great need, which is what happened at the beginning of this year. And I hope that you'll continue to do that good work, and I will hopefully be able to help you. I'm so glad to hear that New York State has been able to step up and provide funding for some of your programs, and I hope that we'll continue to be able to do that and more. I definitely encourage people who are watching this to look at Glynwood, GLYNWOOD.org, I believe is their website, and check out all the wonderful events they have, especially if you have kids. They have so many great events sort of just on a regular basis right now. When we're filming this is summertime, and it is a great time to visit the farm and see all that they're doing there and visit their store and take advantage of all of the local farmers what our local farmers have to offer, the ones that they collaborate with, and learn more about what's in your backyard here in the Hudson Valley and what's kind of like a stone's throw away in terms of crops, in terms of meat, in terms of best practices farming, because really whatever is produced on these farms that are learning these best practices from Glynwood, if you eat that food that goes into your system, that makes you healthier, and then in the long term we all thrive. So again, thanks so much to Megan, thanks so much to Glynwood for all you do, and I hope that you can continue to do all the good work for the lower Hudson Valley and well beyond for many years to come. And
I'm so
Megan is
sorry.
back. I don't know if you heard what I said, but I closed out. Just thanked you so much and said lots of good things about Glynwood. But if there's anything else that you wanted to add, I don't know what happened, but technology these
I
days.
know. I'm so sorry. I think there's a storm blowing through.
Oh gosh. Okay. Well, see, climate change as we speak.
Thank you so
Yes.
much for having us. Really, really a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Megan, and we'll talk soon.
Okay.
Okay. Bye bye.